Welcome to the Answers Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello and welcome to the Answers Yes podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I'm living life large here in Montana. I'm enjoying the weather. I know it's super cold up here, and you've probably seen from some of my posts dealing with the animals in this sub-zero degree weather, but this is the life I chose. It's the life that I wanted. I'm raising my kids here. They're learning about hardships of winter, but they're also learning about 12-hour summer days and up at the lake until 11 p.m. and the light's still out. So we get a little bit of both worlds, but I will call out those folks at Yellowstone, the TV show. Look, guys, Montana is winter half the year. Okay. So start having some episodes in the winter. You know, it's not all beautiful green grass. So anyways, with that aside, I know I'm going to have a good guest on when several of the PR agencies that reach out to me on a weekly basis all send the same person at different times. And it's really hard for me to say no. I had to say yes, and I've been saying yes. And today I have Melissa Hughes on the phone. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jim. I'm so excited to be here today with you.
Well, and I know how you are because we had a brief conversation before we started, and you already got the smiles on my face. I could tell just from your personality and your pictures, that you probably light up the world around you. And there was no way I was going to say no to having you on my show.
Well, I'm glad you said yes.
Well, look, we'll get some of the business out of the way, then we'll have some fun with this. Give us some background. I love for my guests to dive into their background, tell us where you came from, maybe how you were raised. We have a lot of entrepreneurs on the show. You know, they go back as far as selling gumball on the school, playground. But let's hear about you for a little bit, and then we'll dive into some other stuff.
Yeah, a little backstory about how did I become an entrepreneur. I think I was born an entrepreneur, but I just didn't know it. But I can say that my grandfather was the first entrepreneur that I ever met. They were based in Jamaica. And my grandmother's the most spiritual person I ever met. So that was my combination when I was much younger. My family came to the United States and they got divorced eventually. But my mom, because she was new to the country, she didn't trust everybody to raise her firstborn. So she would send me to Jamaica for like the summer times for 3 months at a time. And I really had a lot of influence by my grandparents. And so I just want to warn all the grandparents out there, just be reminded that you are so important. Even the summers, the weeks that you spend with these children, it is life-changing and life-giving. So I definitely have to attribute that little seed that was planted back then. But I will tell you, that's wasn't necessarily the best story, because guess what? I still joined corporate America. That was actually the American dream that my family painted for me when they landed here. When I was born here in New York, that's what I heard. You come to the United States. Well, they're here already. Check. And their children, myself included, we were to get an education, get a job, get that white picket fence, get the car, like all those kind of things. So I will have to say, when I started saying yes, it was a really bad day. Actually, I was at my desk at this really nice hotel. I was looking out on the water, and I was so upset because I knew that while the view was breathtaking and beautiful, I wouldn't be able to be with it. I wouldn't be able to experience life outside of this really nice room.
Yeah.
And I'm unique in that instance because I was in corporate America. And the reason I wasn't able to do that, because I was on back-to-back business calls, putting out fires, answering emails, navigating company politics, like not even liking everybody I was working with. And that day I was thinking to myself, this cannot be my forever after. Like, what is all this for? I did all the good things. I really, at the time, I thought the more money I'd make is the closer I'd be to freedom. And this was the exact opposite, because with every pay increase and bonus, it was like my handcuffs were tightening and tightening. I literally had a vacation lifestyle without the vacation. And at that time, I was like, look, my career was literally dictating my life. The more I got the increases in corporate, is the less time I had to be with the people that I really cared about, and the less time I even had to be with myself. So that really led me to be pretty frustrated. And quite frankly, while I was miserable, I was too ashamed to admit it, because I was born to immigrants. Like I should be grateful for these opportunities. And I did. I got a lot of skills, recognition at work, but I felt like I wasn't making a difference.
Yeah.
And felt like I could be doing more. And that's the day that I was like, you know what? Every once in a while I get this nudge that, oh, there's more out there. There is a better way. And that was the day that I have to say that that was my most powerful yes. And it was born out of frustration. But at the end of the day, I said, you know what? I'm going to follow this nudge. Like I know what this looks like. I'm willing to lay it all on the line and follow what this other way is. And while it wasn't like a direct shift in action, it was the immediate shift in thought that led me to, have a lot more introspection, listen to this small nudge voice more. And I'm glad that I followed it. I mean, it's like, after working, investing, meditating, all the things, I end up being the entrepreneur that I am today for at least 20 years now.
Wow.
And so that's why I'm so excited to be here, because that saying yes is so powerful. In that moment for me, it was listening to my intuition. It was following the other way, the road less traveled from my mother's perspective. This is what she expected for us to do while we were here.
Yeah.
And so it's been a lot of fruits of that, really. Like I get to have my own time doing the things that I really want to do, and my life dictates my business. I get to spend time. I have a little 7-year-old now, and we get to have I get to be an amazing parent. I get to be fully present. And I'm just thankful for those gifts as a result of saying yes.
I want to jump back to a couple of things before we get too far, because I think they're so important. It was quick, but there was some real nuggets in there. And the first one was you mentioned grandparents. I'm so glad you did. Not enough people give credit to their grandparents and the roles that they play in their life. I too was raised or spent a lot of time with my grandparents. My grandfather, Jack Linscott, was one of the most influential persons in my life. If you read my book, if you're listening, The Freedom to Say Yes is my book. I talk a lot about my grandfather and the things that he taught me at the age of 13. How to save money, how to work hard, how to work with, never lean. You got time to lean, time to clean type stuff. Just touch real briefly again on your grandparents and the role that they played. And maybe a message to those grandparents again, because I think it's so important. They're such wonderful people.
Yeah, I have a lot, and I had a lot of introspection of late because both of them passed away this year. But the good news is that my grandfather was passed away at 98. And at 98, he was still doing his finances. He was doing all these things. And then he just decided, he fell 3 weeks later, he decided, you know what? I've lived a good life. I'm ready to go home. And my grandmother passed away like 5 months, 6 days after him. But she said, I spent a great life with my husband. They were married for like 76 years. 9 kids later, all of them either doctors, attorneys, all this stuff. So I had the role models. Like it was as a result of my grandparents setting that foundation. My grandfather, one of his only regrets was not finishing school. Now, his life had turned into being a very successful businessman in Jamaica. He came from that servant heart. He saw a need where the city or the town where he lived, they had to travel to, like, Kingston is a major city in Jamaica. They had to travel far to get the goods and things of that nature. So he saw an opportunity. He's like, let me bring what they need to my town. And that's how he opened up his store. As a grandchild, I remember going in the car and going to the store and like seeing everything going on, trying to help where I could. And they had a back room that I would stay in. I could take my naps and things of that nature. So it's such a warm feeling to be able to reflect on all the gifts that they gave us just by who they are. My grandmother would always pray. She always sang these great songs that was really encouraging, like, I am a promise, I am a possibility. Like, I grew up with like these songs, you know what I mean? And so I have to say that being who I am and how old I am now, I realize that those are the strongest seeds. While my parents have been wonderful, my parents were trying to figure it out. They immigrated to a new country. My grandparents, they were stabilized. They were able to have that time to truly share with us those golden nuggets, you know what I mean? That will last a lifetime. And so I'm just immensely thankful for the fact that they were my grandparents and I was able to enjoy them for so long.
That's wonderful. I love that story. My grandfather was also 96. And by the way, if your grandparents out there, know that you play an important role in your kids and your grandkids and maybe even your great grandkids' lives. Something that comes from that wisdom of being older. I think we pay a little bit more attention, and it's easier coming from our grandparents than our parents too, oftentimes.
Right. I mean, I feel like the grandparents have the best jobs for one thing, because
Yeah.
they already raised their kids. Like they get to play with the folks that they didn't have to deliver and didn't have to like totally raise up all, like their direct line, if you will. But at the same time, I feel like when you get to be a grandparent, you've seen a lot, you've done a lot. And the angst of being there for the first time with your child is like maybe a little bit less. So they really have a unique position in the family tree to truly see us as little souls that we are at the time and truly pour into us from that less pressure perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's different. What is my daughter? It's a little different. I'm like, okay, I hope I'm doing the right thing. So it's a little different as a parent than a grandparent. That's why I think the grandparents have the best jobs. So
They
cherish
do.
it.
They
Yeah.
do. Melissa, you also talked about being in that corporate job, looking out that window. And gosh, I spent a lot of years in my own corporate job when I was the vice president of Kettle One Vodka, and a lot of time in New York, looking out those windows, and seeing the beauty of the city and knowing what's in store for me outside. But I was inside working, and oftentimes being a California native, in the same career for you is looking out at these beautiful cityscapes. For me, I was looking out at the beach, going, "Wow, I live for the beach, but yet here I am in this office." My mind started wandering to, this isn't just the corporate person. It's people in general that are working in careers that they've allowed themselves to get stuck in for one reason or the other, and they're not living the life that they could be living, right? And I'd love for you to touch on that a little bit more, because it was such a big shift for you, to take the comfort of that and realize, even though I have the comfort in this paycheck, I'm not living that life.
Absolutely. It was a very interesting time because, like kind of programmed, well intentioned. Like my family was like, go get a job. Like that was it. Like I was literally following the playbook that was laid out. And I did do that, but I did that enough to be a thorough learner to realize that at that time, while I did that, and I see the beauty of, having a job, I do also believe that it needs to be in alignment with who you are, what you value, what do you feel like your superpower is. And I just didn't feel like I was making the biggest difference at the time. And not only not feeling like making the biggest difference, but that was where most of my time was being spent.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I take a stand for like this 80-20 rule, like just turning the pie, if you will, because I was spending so much time giving the best of me to corporate and then coming back home like I'm not the fun girl, like I'm tired, like I was like, it was a lot going on, and then I'm not even showing up with the people that I love as the best version of myself. So at some point in time I had to look at my life and say like, okay, what am I literally looking to create while I'm here? I don't know about the next life. I have this one. What do I want to have as far as experiences? And how do my words stay in alignment with my actions when I'm saying like, hey, I'm doing this for us?
Yeah.
But the S doesn't feel very loved, or kind of feels like isolated too, because it feels like my values is all the hours of work that I'm dedicating to someone else's dream. Sure. I still remember the opportunity, but at some point in time I had just like, this is not it. This is just not it.
You use the word ashamed, and it's interesting because I was in the family business, I'll call it the family business, until the age of 28. And I left, and my brother was so upset at me. He's like, you were in line to be the president or the vice president or something significant, right? And my parents even said to me, you'll never have this type of opportunity, or you'll never make that money again in your life. And I looked at him like, you're out of your mind. I'm not living the life that I want to live, even though to you it's perceived as success, right? And I think oftentimes we allow that potential shame to get in our way of making the right decision for ourselves.
Absolutely.
How did it feel? Because that's a big word. I would love to have you explain how that felt to make that transition and not be ashamed.
It was, well, first of all, so I was ashamed because I have very educated, high intention people around me that have kids. And so, they were like, why would you leave such a great job? Like, why would you do that? Like, that was kind of in essence stupid, but not quite said stupid, but totally the conversation was all about how stupid that was.
Yeah.
If I'm already at 6 figures, why am I just not comfortable, or why can't I just be satisfied with what I already have in front of me? And it wasn't, at some point, it's not about the 6 figures. At some point, it's about your soul. Like, what are you going to do when you feel like you are selling yourself out, that you feel lost, you're not able to smile with real joy because you just feel like things are drained because it's just out of alignment. And so, it was challenging because I always wanted to do right. And quite frankly, I think that is why I followed the playbook. Like, I totally did all the things that I understood life was supposed to be. That was out of respect for those that are around me. But at some point in time, I had to really listen to that little voice inside of me, acknowledging that this, I was willing to bet it all. I was willing to risk it all to reintroduce myself to myself, to get back in alignment with who I know myself to be. Naturally beautiful, naturally playful, naturally smart for sure, but also able to embrace life and to lean in. And I felt like, okay, I know I can run successful organizations. I know I can run divisions. I know I can do enterprise-wide cool stuff. But let's talk about the world, because I feel like I can really, if I can do it here and I'm called to be more purposeful outside of these walls, I'm willing to take a chance on me.
I love that. We live in a country where there's so many opportunities, and we have a lot of immigrants that come here. I've interviewed so many of them that are entrepreneurs, and they all come with that playbook you talked about. Their parents want them to go to, good grades in high school and go on to a 4-year college and get that degree and then do this career. And that's, the playbook is there. And the ones that I've interviewed, of course, are entrepreneurs that broke out of that mold. But I can't remember too many of them talking about the shame that you felt inside because of letting your group around. So thank you for being transparent with that and sharing your story, because I think there's a lot more people out there that are living what you were living, and hopefully we can get them out of it. I want to transition a little bit because I've got your bio over here on my left and what you do, and everything focuses on your helping of others now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's talk about that, because as it opens up here, it says self-made millionaire by 31. It's like, wow, well, how'd you do that? You stepped away and now you provide value to others. How does that work? So please share with us kind of your transitionary time and what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. So transitions are very funny because it's not a one stop, right? So the first transition I did is when I had taken this really amazing, titanium handcuffs opportunity, I relocated to a different town, a different state. And when I was moving into the complex, they said, and it was all new development, they said, oh, well, we're going to have a spa. And then they end up the deal went through. So I was like, I'll do that. I'll create the spa. I will, and I had a little uniqueness. I wanted to have a membership tied to it. I was like, yeah, like the guys have the golf membership, it was much more traditional at the time. The women will have a spa membership, or when there's like the great football games, then we'll have a great themes here at a spa. Like, women have an outlet to also have fun if that's what they choose to do in those times. And so it was, I remember when I was there, and first of all, it was a boutique day spa, very upscale. And initially I didn't have the money to put the washer and dryer in the actual spa. So I am here lugging the towels, and there are a lot of towels that are here. Every night I'm just like, and maybe be done by like 3:00 in the morning. But I have to say that was my initial, just stepping away, have my own business, brick and mortar. And I have to say that I was tired, but I still had a smile on my face, because I knew that every effort that I made would be a direct result of what I put out. Like, it's not a percentage of the hourly bill rate. Like, I get everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. I was able to physically create the success.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have to say, even with my first business, I realized, you have all the hats. Like, there's in corporate America, you have the HR department. Accounts payable is different than accounts receivable. Like, it's all spread out. Like, as an entrepreneur, it's like, what hat am I wearing in this second? And so that was really interesting, but also the more reality, the harsh reality of it. It's like, it rises and falls with you. It's the scary as well as the exciting at the same time. And then I just have to say that after that, one day when I was at the spa, I was really concerned about meeting payroll. Like, so in this, I'm sharing this because even though I was a millionaire by 31, it's not like a brownies and cupcakes kind of situation. I was literally trying to figure out on a Thursday if I was going to be able to cover payroll on a Friday.
Yeah.
And yeah, at that time I was type A personality. I tried everything and it just wasn't coming through. And I was scared to death. I would rather die than face people the next day that already did the work, that already have family responsibilities, to let them know that I can't pay them. So at that night, my mother called me at night, and she clearly, the sense that something was really amiss, she called my grandmother, and they both prayed with me the, throughout the night. I made it through the night. When in the morning, when I was walking towards the spa, there was a man there waiting to buy a gift certificate, a membership for his wife.
Yeah.
That membership covered the payroll and had
Oh,
their supplies. So it was in that moment I knew that, I was the type A. I'm so solution oriented. I tried so much to like make that happen. I had to acknowledge that my spiritual journey started from that point forward, because I could not give anything other than God in that moment credit for me being able to make it out such a dark time. And because I know all my strength and all my might, which I gave it my all, that night I had nothing. And then the morning it all worked out. And so I feel like those combinations that allowed me to be here today with you, Jim. and also, then I did proceed to be a millionaire by 31. Then I realized, look, it's great to be in a spa, but those are a lot of hours. It's a lot. I worked myself out of the jobs. I had my whole staff, but I was like, this is not necessarily it. I proved what I wanted to prove, that if I left corporate, I had the goods to create my own, to monetize. Later on,
Melissa,
I went and did my service-based business.
before we cut into your service-based business, I just want to reiterate to the listeners that you had faith over fear. Your family prayed for you overnight. God provided as you walked up to the doorstep. And I can't tell you how many times that happens to me in my life. I've always had faith in my life, but I never really applied it to business until about 5 years ago. And I'm going to be 55 next month. So, it took a lot of years to realize that God plays a role in our lives as it relates to business and what we do for work, not just in our personal lives. He shows up all day, every day. And even just a couple of weeks ago, I picked up my girls from school and I was a little stressed, work for myself, money's tight. And I'm going, man, this is going to be a rough month, right? We're coming into Christmas and all that.
Yeah.
And literally that was my demeanor picking the girls up. And I get this call and I know the person. I knew what he probably was going to call for. And I probably like, I'm not sure I'm going to answer the call. And the nature of the conversation was, Jim, we have an investor that wants to buy X amount of shares from you. And he's like begging me, would you be willing to sell them? And I'm going, you're kidding me, right? And the conversation was wonderful. And the point I'm trying to make is that God shows up in the most obscure ways when you have faith over fear. And, you were honest and you talked about that. And I just wanted to bring it up again because I don't think people have enough of that in their lives. So let's talk about your service-based business now, because I know what you're doing for companies based on what I've read here. And I'd love to hear from you firsthand.
Oh, absolutely. So I do coaching and consulting now, and actually more coaching now. I mean, it's evolved. I really support leaders and entrepreneurs in being able to get in alignment with what they feel like their purpose is. I have a really great knack of seeing souls and saying, okay, what's the highest good that you can provide in the world? And so I serve the giants, if you will. These are the folks that are, they know it's bigger than them. They are open to leveraging their intuition because they are usually the trailblazers. They're highly educated, multi-talented. They're solution-oriented. They're servant leaders, if you will. And with the multi-talented and highly educated folks that come to me, oftentimes we can actually get that term, jack of all trades, master of none. And I feel like that's a byproduct of having to chop yourself up depending on the circles that you're in. So when you are leading as a leader in corporate America, oftentimes the company wants whatever of you that's going to support them in closing the deal. like all the other personal, there's not so much. They're not interested in that so much, depending on the culture of the organization. And then you might have some colleagues or some friends that you've had for a long time. They're not interested in your shine. They just want you to you want to make sure that you dim your light for them, to make sure that everybody feels comfortable around you. So we change and we shift just to accommodate those that we're looking to make comfortable or serve. And I said, look, when you're having your own business or you're looking to live your fullest life, the most important thing is to identify what's the highest version of how you serve. So let's integrate all of those skills and let's come from that place, because when you do that, you're more powerful, you're more consistent, you're more concise. It is a better place to be. And people get the best of you when you do that as well. So I'm really excited about serving giants, like I said, the entrepreneurs and the leaders, because when I am able to come alongside them, support them in doing that, then they get more, their careers skyrocket, because now they're clear as to, oh, wow. Like I was just breathing in that. I was like, no, that's actually a superpower that people pay a lot of money for.
Yeah.
And in entrepreneurs, they're like, oh, what? I don't have to hide that part of myself. I can show up like this and I'll still get customers. I was like, as a matter of fact, you'll get more, because people can sense if there's like, we don't always know it, but we can sense if someone has like a little reserve, like kind of hanging back a little bit. And so when you're able to be in full alignment, when you say you can support them and 1,000% of your DNA is all in truth, doused in like alignment confidence, that's a whole nother entrepreneur that you can present. And the world does accept that, because you're showing up as the real deal, authentically, energetically. You can't lose that way.
I think this message goes both ways too. You know, you're coaching these people to be more their authentic self and bring these other parts about them. But if you're the owner of the company and you've employed one of these people, please allow them to do this as well, right? I chuckled when you were talking, because I'm obviously in the consulting business too, and my listeners know that. And I got wrapped into a project. We were analyzing an investment in a tech company, and it was a quick couple months of analysis, and we finally made a decision what we were going to do with it. Well, this particular client wanted to jump into cannabis, and I said, well, I can consult from this arena. You know, this is what I'm good at. Well, 2 years later, I'm still on the project, but now we're closing that up, and they're like, well, you know, we're just not sure, you know, what we would use you for. I said, well, don't forget about all the other skills I came to the table with. You know, cannabis is like 0.5%, you know. And they're like, you know, we didn't even think about that, because all of our discussions for the last 2 years have been about this one project, you know. And I think that, you know, the leaders of the world that hire these great people, they don't allow them to tap into their true potential, like you're talking about, you know.
Right. And so, it's more, it helps the company even more. I mean, yeah. And what I do when I have to go into companies, I've had situations where, you know, they were actually like downsizing a whole, because they bring in all this technology and some of the people's skills might not have met up with what they needed in the future. And I had this, it was like 30 people that were going to be displaced. Well, fortunately, they trusted me enough to actually go in there and see what was their value system, where were their skills. And when we did those kind of assessments, everybody was able to go to different parts of the company. There were people that were technical writers that were not even being used for that, but on the team, they were the ones that were redoing the manuals every time there was a new project or procedures. You know, there were people that were great at project management, and like they were and they had the track record, but they didn't see themselves, because they were just servant leaders. They're just doing what they need to do to keep the company going. But it was only one person out of 30, only one person had to like go, because they truly just weren't doing anything, and they weren't, their heart wasn't in it. They weren't in alignment with the company. And so I believe that when companies actually do look at, how can I leverage these superpowers amongst these teams? How can I support them shining their light and being compatible and comparable, not all the same, but compatible and really goal oriented and all inclusive. There's so much more that they get that they didn't even expect, and they have more longevity. This is especially great for the millennials too, and the Y generation, and all the oxidants after the.
Where does it end?
You know, where does it end? But when you're able to leverage aligning your team with the goals and make sure the values are shared, then that is a powerful, high productive team. And even when you're bringing in, like you're saying, your vendors from outside, I, as a vendor, when I go in, I share with them, these are the things that we do. And in this experience, this is where we're going to laser, like out of the pie, this is the part that we're going to use for this. Or this project is a 3-part project, but we're going to start with stage 1. So they understand the scope, but they understand for this is how we're going to serve you to meet you where you are. But don't forget that we have these other things. And so it allows you to have an easier conversation when it comes to whatever they're doing next, because you just do, okay, let's talk about next steps. What's the next phase? Okay, based on that, this is where we can come alongside you so you can continue your success. So it's very important as giants to know the goods, to be able to educate people as to, you might pick me for this thing, but this is who you're really getting. That's why this thing, you're going to get excellent service because it's bonused around all the things I bring to the table.
Yeah.
When you have consultants that are emotionally intelligent, great organizers, great people skills, the cognitive, like they have the hard knowledge, but they also have the soft knowledge as well. That makes for a really great experience and a very lasting experience. So when the change happens, they're touching on the people, the processes, and whatever the tools are involved. That's why giants are the best people to work with, even when it comes to being a vendor.
I love it. Now, well, let's close on this thought because I think you bring a lot of value and we're getting to our time here. Talks about you being the guru of implementation. And that just stuck out to me because I think about all the ways that would apply. Can you talk about why that's a title that you've been given and the value that you bring?
Yeah, because I know how to support my clients in getting things done. So there's 2 aspects of this, I do believe. The first one is when we work with, you work with them as well, like big organizations, and they have these big strategies that impact and touch each multiple departments, right? Like, how do you get it done? Like you have to think about not just the project that you're doing, but the people, the personalities, the business side versus the technical side. There's so many different aspects to it. There's also an emotional path of a project. So implementation for me means making sure that we bring in whatever we need to make sure this is successful and as smooth as can be, knowing that there's shakeups in any project. It's the nature change. The other part of implementation is when I understand what someone's divine assignment is or their purpose is, based on my life and my experiences, I can come alongside them with a plan to make sure they're able to monetize that and implement it and get it done. So I can give them the steps from an idea, and I can give them the steps from a massive, let's come into this organization that's already been around for a long time. How do we make sure we do this in a smooth way? How do we support the leaders that can be there for the first time doing something they've never done before? How do we make them still look cool? And how do we make sure that they don't burn out and want to leave after it's done or get fired because they just did not do the things that need to be done? So that's where the implementation comes in. It's a well-rounded aspect of it. It's not just the getting it done. It's what's the experience that we want to have as a result of getting it done and getting it done well.
Well, I honed in on that word intentionally because oftentimes we'll see consultants come in and they'll put together great plans, around the board table. And then when they leave, they've left the team behind to implement the strategies. And that's where a lot of these things fall off on. It's very reminiscent of, a motivational speaker gets up and motivates you to charge the front lines, and you go back to work. You're like, I'm here now. What? Like, how am I supposed to charge the front lines again? Like, how does that apply to me?
Yes, absolutely.
So I knew you'd have a good response there, and I love that that's something that people consider you as a guru because it's such a missed component. So thank you for that, Melissa. Again, another great guest. I could probably talk to you all day, especially with the energy that you're bringing through your smile and personality and everything that you've spoke about. Where can people find you? I'll list your website in the show notes, but where do you like to be reached out to and for people to find more about you?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, there is a documentary that was first released on the movement, Live Rich, Spread Wealth, which is in essence how to embrace all of who you are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and your experiences and your quirky, and contribute positively to humanity and get out of your way to receive the abundance that provides. So that's complimentary for everyone that wants to know how to choose unapologetically, how to say yes, that kind of thing. And then when I'm on social media, I am Melissa Hughes. And then I am also melissahughes.com. If you want to learn about what we do at my company and what we're all about, that's a great place to go.
I think we got two huge lessons for two stages of life. If you're in that job looking out the window going, hey, I'm working my tail off here, but I'm not enjoying what I'm seeing out there, it's okay. And you don't have to be ashamed to make a transition. And once you make that transition, you're starting to find some success, you can reach out to Melissa and she can help get you to the other side. So Melissa, thank you so much for your time and wonderful conversation.
Well, Jim, I want to thank you for having this amazing podcast. I want to thank you for taking the stand for your listeners to be reminded week after week, day after day, what it takes to say yes. So I want to encourage your listeners, keep on listening to Jim, because saying yes, the gold is on the other side. You cannot go wrong to saying yes to yourself.
Well, I appreciate that. If you like the show, please share it with your friends. Let's build up that listener base and change the world.
Awesome. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's show. It is my pleasure and honor to interview all of the guests that have been on the Answer is Yes podcast. If you have enjoyed the show, please go on iTunes and subscribe, give a rating, or simply tell a friend about the show. We also believe in the message of our guests and the positive influence of their stories. As my own mentor and coach, David Meltzer, has taught me, spend some time every day thinking and writing about the things in your own life that you have more than enough of. You will find out how blessed we really are. Please visit my website, livelifedriven.com, for the latest updates about me and what I'm doing. Plus, I post a monthly blog about the many topics on this show. This podcast can also be found there. As I learned early on in life, what you believe is what you will achieve. Thanks, Mark Victor Hansen, and thank you, and have a great week.